Hello everyone, friends, this is Mozart, and in this video, we'll talk about altcoins. I'm not particularly interested in Bitcoin anymore, although I do see the potential for further growth. However, it is quite limited, unlike many coins that are currently showing overall interesting patterns, intriguing formations, and quite promising targets. The market capitalization of altcoins has surpassed $1 trillion, and I'm specifically looking at total 3, which means the capitalization of altcoins excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. We broke through the $1 trillion mark yesterday, and today we're seeing a correction at the market open. So, let's take a purely technical look at the capitalization of altcoins. These are the targets, the green horizontal lines that I set as the altcoins bounced back. All targets have been met and exceeded. In principle, even now I could close my entire portfolio and walk away with a very decent profit, essentially, but I'm not doing that. I'm partially taking profits, as you know. Everything I do, I show in the Telegram channel, so we're taking profits almost daily together, with IOTA, and I'm still trading short-term Ethereum, which I also share, along with all my short-term trades, the entire portfolio, Tezos, Algo. I managed to take some good profits on Algo. And in any case, all these profits, all these signals, I've only added in the Telegram channel. They weren't on YouTube, so if you don't want to miss similar signals in the future, I recommend subscribing to my Telegram channel. The link is in the description below. This video. Another performer that is starting to show good results for us right now is Litecoin. We maximally accumulated Litecoin on July 5th, meaning I manually activated the lower limit order, with average entries around $67, and Litecoin has now given us nearly 2x. I'm not doing anything with it for now. I'll think about it in the near future. Its targets are higher, so from my perspective, the targets for Litecoin start at $140, possibly even from $170. After that, we'll see how it goes. So, in this way, what do we have here? The most important thing is the technique. The technique, as we can see, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4 consecutive bars drawn, weekly bars for total 3, green, on enormous volume. The volume is twice as high as the March volume, so this is a very serious spike. On top of that, according to the indicators, we've reached nearly 80 on the weekly RSI. This is a very serious indicator, suggesting that the upward trend will likely continue, even if there is a strong correction of about 10, 15, or 20% on total 3. In any case, it will likely continue, because this spike is rarely false when looking at the weekly time frame. It's a very strong spike. Moreover, it will likely continue in roughly this manner, because this is just the first wave. Well, considering the strength of the throwback, we had a correction, for example, in September 2020. What did we have here? August-September 2020, so there was some gradual unloading. Yes, indeed, and we had a correction here. It was 20 to 25%. This was in September 2020, when liquidity in the market was 10 times lower. 90 to 100 billion. Now it is 10 times more. Therefore, we can limit ourselves to a more conservative correction overall. Moving on. This is the first sign, that is, the technical growth of total 3 is impressive, very strong both weekly and monthly. And with a high degree of probability, such a wave continues either immediately or after a correction. The next important point is Bitcoin dominance. We see that the week closed with a decline in Bitcoin's dominance, and quite a significant one, on very high volume. They also broke the weekly trend, but in this case, the week is not as important as the month. The month closed with an engulfing pattern. This is a quite strong reversal signal, especially considering the volume of this engulfing. So, we broke below the 100 moving average, the monthly one. Therefore, I certainly don't think we'll just plummet straight down like that, although I don't rule out that possibility. Basically, what's the situation here? We could hover around here for a while. Although considering it's monthly, we might not hover at all and instead shoot up somewhere, at least, with a spike of about 55% up here, and then bounce back. And then continue moving towards the 50 moving average, this one here, that will be around the 50% mark in terms of dominance. So, the main signal here is the monthly engulfing pattern and Bitcoin's dominance on the weekly time frame. And such candles, such engulfing patterns, have quite often reversed dominance into a bear market. For example, there was a partial engulfing pattern here, but we made some progress. Here, there was a full engulfing pattern. This is analogous to the current state of affairs. Here you go, a complete engulfing pattern, and after it, we dropped another 36% in dominance. Well, it's not exactly that, but nonetheless, a drop, a bounce, and off we go to distribute the alts. So, the signal is quite reversal-oriented, and considering that this is a monthly time frame, it's quite important. This, combined with the surge of Total 3, the strength of the Total 3 surge on the weekly time frame, is a very strong indicator. So again, everything points to the fact that Altseason will continue, and the levels we see now are not the same for all coins. Many have already shown good performance. The same goes for Ripple or Algo, but for most coins, this is just the beginning. And what reasonable targets I always post in the Telegram channel, then for one coin or another. Next, and at the same time, we look at what's happening in the blockchain. So, this is our average funding, in this case, for Bitcoin across all exchanges. There is still no overheating here, meaning the peak was on November 11th at 0042 across all exchanges, and then we entered consolidation. Considering that in March, even in March, these values were much higher. They were 1.5 to 1.7 times higher, and funding reached levels of 0.07%. This is for Bitcoin. If we look at Ethereum, we take it like this. Here, funding behaves a bit more actively. Well, for one simple reason, Ethereum has recently started to perform stronger than Bitcoin. It was at 0.37 at the peak, but again, it's still very far from the March values. In March, these peak values were twice as high. Here, the price is not overheated. This metric is only available for Bitcoin and Ethereum. I can't check other altcoins. For now, Glassnode keeps promising that they will add Solana, Tron, BNB, and Uniswap for Tier 3 metrics in the future. Well, in the near future. Then I'll show you everything else. Moving on. Here, the amount of altcoins and stablecoins on exchanges is still very, very high. As of the day before yesterday, it was over $15 billion. And as long as all these stablecoins are on exchanges, this is a net position of stablecoins on exchanges, which serves as fuel for the altcoin market. Look at how much higher the current position of stablecoins is compared to March. As for how the coins performed, right now, coins have, on average, only gone through the March rebound. On average across the market, it's clear that some are already much higher, but on average, it's the March rebound. Liquidity, after all, spreads throughout the system, from larger to smaller. As soon as something becomes difficult to pump, coins and Tether go where it's easier. So overall, everything will be balanced out. And that was the case. In March, liquidity on exchanges was roughly 6 times lower than it is now. And while this is the liquidity in the system, what it was here, I'll show you now. March. Here, altcoins shot up very strongly. What is it now? Only 6 times higher. And as long as it stays this way, altcoins will continue to shoot up. Not all at once, but in turn, nevertheless, this will happen. Moving on. This is the net position of Bitcoin plus Ethereum on exchanges. There are still massive outflows from the exchanges. So at the peaks, our equivalent in dollars was around $700 million. That's a lot, despite the fact that outflows are occurring even while long-term holders, LTH, have been selling heavily. In other words, the money they are selling is somehow accumulating in the market. Something is happening with them. Part goes into altcoins, part stays in Tether, waiting for, say, better prices, while some are being bought up by new wallets, so-called fresh money, and these bitcoins are being moved to cold storage. And indeed, even this outweighs what the long-term holders are selling. You can't ignore that long-term holders are selling, that's 100% true, but for now, it is being offset. Next, here are the specific positions of the long-term holders. I've talked a lot about this. We saw the peak of sales on the 26th to 27th of November. At the peak, 422,000 bitcoins were distributed by long-term holders, LTH, over the month. And now they have started gradually regrow. This position has decreased from minus 422,000 to minus 395,000. So overall, strong sales have stopped. And during this first correction of Bitcoin, we have sales. Some are accumulating losses, some from long-term holders, which is also a positive signal. Next, this metric, which I have shown multiple times, is the number of distributions in a 2-week window among long-term holders. According to this metric, we haven't even broken 1. The peak was 0.866, meaning that for about 13 out of 15 days, long-term holders were spending their coins, whereas in March, they spent for 15 out of 15 days, and this continued for 10 consecutive days. And this once again speaks to the nature of the sales. In the previous video, I showed you who exactly was selling, broken down by age groups, so-called ages. It was primarily not the holders of one cycle, but rather conditional long-term holders, meaning those who were actually holding coins solely with the aim of Trump's victory, holding onto their bitcoins. They, yes, did not sell off, but those who were investors even in this cycle, which is 1 to 3 years, and even more so investors from the previous cycle, from 2021, which is 3 to 5 years. They are sitting tight and not getting jittery. The current prices do not suit them, and if they did, we would see it in the indicators. I would be seeing it right now. As long as this isn't happening, it means, with a high degree of probability, that this is not the end. This is not the peak for Bitcoin. And while Bitcoin is in this consolidation, the current one, there is a fairly high probability that altcoins, yes, they won't grow forever, they will also correct, but overall this upward trend for them will continue. A medium-term weekly trend. And lastly, indeed, this is the momentum of realized profit to loss. So, at the moment, at the peak on the 24th of November, and also on the 23rd, the peak of realized profit to loss was at a momentum of 5.15. While in March, the peak was at 8.43, 1.6 times higher, 1.5 to 1.6 times higher. And the momentum itself reached this peak of about 96 to 97% literally for a couple of days. While in March we reached similar levels on the 12th of February and maintained this momentum. From the 12th of February to 15 to 16 March, meaning we held this momentum for over a month. Now we've touched it, so to speak, just once, for 2 to 3 days at most, and we've already pulled back. This is yet another confirmation that not all long-term investors are locking in profits, and another confirmation that this is merely the first market impulse, which will likely rise again after a correction. The long-term positions that I hold, at least I'm speaking for myself, I'm not planning to sell at the current levels altogether. Yes, targets are being closed as planned, but selling everything at once right now is quite foolish. Because we have December ahead of us, we have January ahead of us, and Trump's inauguration. Seasonally, after the president's inauguration, especially one as close to cryptocurrency as Trump and the team has assembled, this growth typically continues at least until spring, at most until summer, and possibly even towards the end of the year, 25 with a slight breather. So, to summarize everything I've said, first, the technical trend for Total 3. It's a very strong technical trend. For 4 weeks, we've seen huge spikes. Secondly, Bitcoin's dominance. The absorption has moved to the most important monthly time frame, the longest term one. Thirdly, after such growth, if we see a correction, that would be normal. It's to be expected. There's nothing terrible about it. Generally speaking, after this correction, growth will continue. Well, with a higher probability. Fourthly, regarding Bitcoin, this is not the peak. For a while, Bitcoin may move sideways, after which we will see a new high for Bitcoin. It will most likely break the 100. It's likely to even surpass 110. Here are the 4 main conclusions, and the 5th is already indirectly from the blockchain. We haven't seen any significant sales yet. There is no major selling pressure. That hasn't happened yet, as of now, from the long-term holders. So far, only the holders of Trump's actual victory have sold off. The smart money, more of the smart money, are waiting for higher prices. That's all. Thank you all for your attention. This was Mozart, and goodbye everyone.